Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Feliciano Live. We're here with Steve Sherman. He's a faculty expert here in the Department of Marketing at the Feliciano School of Business. We're talking about dynamic ticket pricing in the concert, sports, and entertainment industries. So welcome, Steve. Our first question is, what is dynamic ticket pricing?
Well, dynamic ticket pricing is something that we're all familiar with from our experiences buying airline tickets. It's one day you're looking at an airline ticket that's $270. You're all excited to see grandma next week. And then the next day you log on to actually buy the ticket, and it's $330 for the ticket. Dynamic pricing really is about assessing its systems, artificial intelligence, and algorithms that assess what's going on, the demand for those tickets, and it's changing those prices on a regular and continual basis. So that's the foundations of dynamic ticket, right? Dynamic pricing, right? And again, most of us are familiar with it from airlines, but not so much for when we buy a ticket to see Taylor Swift or the New York Rangers or the Jets.
So for those just joining us, we're here with Steve Sherman. He's our faculty expert in the Department of Marketing. We're talking about concert, sports, entertainment industries, and ticket pricing. Any questions, feel free to ask them as we progress through the interview. Our second question is, how does dynamic ticket pricing work?
Well, dynamic ticket pricing really looks, and let's do a little history before we do that. Dynamic ticket pricing really takes advantage of the fact that there's always been some dynamic nature to things like concerts and events. I brought a prop with me, so I'm going to show, and let's see if they're going to zoom in a little bit on it. Those are two concerts I attended in 1978, aging myself a little bit there. Two concerts I attended in 1978, and you can see it was Neil Young one night was $8.50 at Madison Square Garden. Bob Dylan the next night at $9.50. It used to be that, concerts were just priced at $12 to see the Rolling Stones, $11 to see Led Zeppelin. And then we developed a little bit of structure in there, which is that we had sitting close was a $30 ticket, sitting a little farther away was a $25 ticket, sitting in the upper bowl was a $20 ticket. But dynamic pricing really is a much more sophisticated way to look at these things. I think we're going to dive in, Phil, to some examples on this. I don't know if you want to dive in now, but you want to talk about Taylor Swift, or you want to save that for a little bit later?
Let's talk about Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift on her last tour really drove very hard on that dynamic ticket pricing model. So what you had is, traditionally, when Taylor Swift would announce her tour, and if Taylor Swift was coming to MetLife Stadium or to Madison Square Garden, the tickets would immediately sell out. It would be minutes, maybe an hour. All of the tickets were gone, and you had $120 tickets, you had $100 tickets, you had $80 tickets. And you were lucky to get in, but within an hour, all those tickets were gone. On Taylor Swift's last summer tour, tickets, months after tickets went on sale, they were still available. And it was because of the way the dynamic pricing was used, because some of the tickets were priced as high as $950 to sit close. So what they did was they actually let the marketplace determine the pricing for the tickets. Right? And again, some of the tickets, it was a few days before the concert, not all the tickets were sold yet, and the prices were moving around all of the time.
So for those who just joined us, we're here with Steve Sherman talking about sports, entertainment, and concert ticket pricing. Our next question is, how does supply demand affect ticket prices?
Well, they certainly do it. We have it, for example, already in the secondary market, where the more demand there is for a ticket, the more it's going to be driven up. We've all seen Hamilton tickets selling for thousands of dollars. If we wanted to go see Hamilton, today's Thursday, if we wanted to go see Hamilton tonight, our tickets were probably somewhere between $500 and $1,000. So the demand is the key driver, but that's the thing that dynamic pricing can measure. It can actually know that a Saturday night Broadway show is much more appealing than a Tuesday night Broadway show, and it will be adjusting those tickets in real time. So again, we see that demand is really the key driver in determining what prices are. It's not what an artist wants to charge. It's not what a venue wants to charge. It's actually the real-time demand for that ticket is what can ultimately determine the prices.
So why is dynamic ticket pricing important in e-commerce?
Well, in e-commerce, too, we're probably starting to see it move around. So if we have this model that's being used so successfully and in things like sports and events and live entertainment, we're probably going to see this start to move more and more into our e-commerce, right? Where a pair of pants or a book that we buy may be changing based on the demand for that product. However, the thing that's different about a regular product, again, a pair of pants or a book, is that those things can be continually produced. We can continually produce more pants or more books. A night with Bruce Springsteen is a night with Bruce Springsteen. There is a limited supply of those tickets, right? Bruce Springsteen on Broadway, there were about 800 seats in that theater. We only had 800 tickets to sell. So that unnaturally reduces the kind of the supply we have for those products. So in fact, when you look at ticketing, dynamic pricing is a pretty exciting place to go. I think we're going to see more of it in hard goods, again, in pants and books and things that we buy, but not as much as we see in kind of, again, something like live entertainment.
So what is the downside for consumers purchasing tickets over the internet?
Well, think about it. You're attending a Broadway play or a New York Rangers game, and you paid $120 for your ticket. The person sitting next to you may have paid $50 or $75 for that very same ticket. So in a way, there are issues, and it's really tough for sports teams. There are issues of fairness that they have to deal with, right? Particularly if you look in the sports arena, one of the main drivers for them is those season ticket sales. Sports teams like to sell season tickets because it's a steady revenue source. They bank the revenue for a full season for those tickets. But again, if you're selling to a season ticket holder and you're selling a $150 ticket, right, over time, the secondary market, which we probably should talk about a little bit, but the secondary market may drive down the price of those tickets. So again, they're going there, they're the best fan, they pre-purchase their tickets, they're the season ticket holder, they're the most valuable resource or revenue driver for the team, and yet the person sitting right next to them in the arena is maybe paying half what they paid to have the very same experience. So it's complicated. For sports teams, they've really struggled with this, and I have experience working for a couple of professional sports teams. It's a struggle to be selling your season ticket holders on, again, their $150 or $200 a game tickets, and then knowing that in the secondary market on StubHub or SeatGeek, those same tickets are being variably priced. There's dynamic pricing going on in that market, and there's $80 and $60 and $40 and even $20 tickets going for sale. It really creates what, there's no other way to say it, a messy, screwed up situation in the market for live ticket events.
So what are the limitations associated with dynamic ticket pricing?
Well, I think the limitations is an interesting way to think about it. I think at a certain point, dynamic pricing kind of pushes people away from markets, right? When Taylor Swift is selling tickets for $900 or $700, because that's what the market will bear for certain tickets, you're actually alienating a certain part of your customer base. A lot of people cannot afford and I'll even bring it down a little bit, a $150 or a $200 concert ticket. So what you're doing, in fact, I started out here by showing, look, this was me as a 15-year-old going to see Bob Dylan and Neil Young on consecutive nights. I saw the Rolling Stones for $12 when I was 15 years old. One of the things about dynamic pricing is it squeezes consumers. It really finds the optimal price that consumers will spend, and I believe it really does alienate people from those markets. A lot of the students I have at Montclair State University, I sometimes when I talk about ticketing, I'll say, how many of you have been to a concert in the last 6 months? And I'll have 1 or 2 students raise their hands. When I was 17, 18, 19 years old, I would go to 2 concerts on the same night because the tickets were really affordably priced. It wasn't out of reach. So one of the things I think that dynamic pricing does is it's good at finding the customers who have the greatest ability to pay, driving prices up and serving those customers, but there's a large group of customers that it disserves by just kind of pushing prices up too high.
And does this method drive sustainable growth for companies?
Well, it's interesting. It's going to be different for, I'm going to say, the music business versus the sports business, right? For the music business, they were desperate to get better at pricing their tickets, right? Because clearly, a music concert that sells out in 30 seconds or 1 minute. And again, when I worked at Madison Square Garden, we had lots of concerts, Justin Bieber, Bruce Springsteen, that sold out in the first 5 minutes. So that is not an optimally priced product, right? And so dynamic pricing has the opportunity to create more revenue, and the artists do need to make more revenue because they're making less from the music. Music sales is a dead business. Streaming is a hard way to make money. So it does create more kind of sustainability for the music industry. For sports, it's just a mess. Again, teams are very much beholden to selling to their season ticket holders. Season ticket holders are an incredibly important source of revenue, yet if we have a secondary market or dynamic pricing going on, by the way, and dynamic pricing will be driven by a team. The New York Rangers could, let's say, or the New York Mets could do dynamic pricing, and they do some of it, but the real market or the real place where we see dynamic pricing occurring is the secondary market. It's the StubHubs and the SeatGeeks who are really, the pricing is just all over the place, and it's changing constantly. And as a consumer, it's kind of exciting to go on StubHub and see prices move around. And they have a great business, right? We have a market now. In fact, if we talk about the secondary market just by itself, right? And here's something, right? The secondary market, this has only existed since the year 2000. StubHub was founded in 2000. It's now owned, it's part of eBay. It didn't even exist a few years ago. We have something now that's going to be a $15 billion to $20 billion market in the next few years. And again, this thing didn't even exist a few years ago, right? I mean, Phil, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of like going onto a SeatGeek or a StubHub. Yeah. It's amazing. You go on there, their platforms are attractive. You can pick the exact seat. You can do what I did a couple summers ago when I wanted to go see U2. You can wait for the prices to come down because you know there's a dynamic nature to it. And I literally waited for my U2 tickets to come down. They were about $20 more than I wanted to spend. And I waited, and I literally waited until, and then all of a sudden, and you can set a price point. You can say, I'm willing to pay $120 to see U2. Let me know what's in my range, and they'll send you text messages and emails letting you know when tickets are in your range. So it's definitely an industry unto itself. It just coexists with things like sports and the actual concert promoters and the artists and live events like Radio City Music Hall and the Christmas Spectacular and all those things. These things kind of coexist together, right, in kind of an unnatural relationship.
So our final question for Professor Sherman is, what is the future of dynamic pricing in the concert, sports, and entertainment industry, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's not going away. If you've ever purchased a ticket on a StubHub or a SeatGeek, it's an incredibly attractive process, right? It's easy, it's flexible, it's fast. There's guarantees. They've gotten rid of some of the fraud issues that they've had. I don't want to be a cheerleader for StubHub. So what I think we're going to see is leagues like the NBA and the NHL, Major League Baseball, the NFL, they're creating their own platforms right now, and they've already created platforms for dynamic pricing. They have things where season ticket holders can resell tickets for games they have not been to. So we're going to see more dynamic pricing in all of these areas, just because it's the way things are. I think the question is, though, too, how much does dynamic pricing move into other areas? To what degree are, again, when I buy a book, or if I buy a movie, for going to the movies, right? I was going to tell you an example earlier. When Ben-Hur came out in 1969, they tried a dynamic pricing experiment. They said for the first week it cost $5 to see Ben-Hur, but after that it cost $1.50. It was the equivalent of paying $35 to go to the movies today. And the movie industry has experimented with dynamic pricing. I don't know, do you ever go to the movies on Tuesday? You work on Tuesdays. $5 Tuesdays. So a lot of movie theaters have $5 Tuesdays. So the movie industry is experimenting. Would I have paid more money to see the next Avengers or Captain Marvel movie the opening weekend? The answer to that is yes. I would have paid another $5 just to get in on the opening weekend. So I think we're going to see more dynamic pricing. I just think some of the issues around fairness, again, I go to a play or a sporting event and the person sitting next to me paid half what I paid. How comfortable are consumers with that? How far are we going with that? I think time will tell. But again, dynamic pricing and the systems that we're developing now are not going anywhere. They're just getting better, probably.
Great. I want to thank Professor Sherman for his time, for joining us for this session. Next week on March 7th, we'll be here with Dr. Barisha talking about the recession and is a recession coming. So thank you all. Have a good day.